Hello gainers, Ralphie here on location at a beautiful place, breathing the fresh air, enjoying the silence. Well, it's not quite silent, there's the sound of running water and birds in the trees, but compared to the hectic hubbub and absurdity of human urban environments, this is really quite nice. And I'm Ralphie. This is Fitter Philosophy, and this is the video channel where I share my personal philosophy, which is inspired by Stoicism, Gnosticism, a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Islam, a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of Hebrew. And everything out there has something to contribute. And the most important thing is that we explore, see what's there, understand what's going to be useful for us to contribute to our own lives, for the simple reason that too often we go through life quietly waiting for the world to change, for circumstances out with our control to change, to make things better, not just for us, because generally we're well intentioned and we're good people, supposedly, but to change for the better for humanity. But you can see that it doesn't really work that way. It's a bit more complex, it's a bit more convoluted. And I'm going to talk about the subject of why we should never wait for the world to change, and why we cannot change the world ourselves. We're far too small. However, the one thing we can change is us. First of all, we need to understand ourselves, give ourselves time as children to grow up, to discover the people that we are, whether we are sociable, introvert, extrovert, mathematically minded, entrepreneurial, artistic, all these different things. And as we mature into our 20s, allow ourselves that little bit extra time to acquire a little more knowledge in depth of the world around us, at which point we can then start to help the world by changing ourselves for the better. And it's not as simple as doing a little bit more good and a little bit less evil. That can certainly help. If you want to avoid being a mass murderer, that, by the way, gainers, is a pretty good thing to be. But it's understanding the consequences. And this is where the wisdom of the elders kicks in. The direction we take our lives, whether we're going to do good things and manifest good things in ourselves, if we develop that over time and become genuinely better people, and it doesn't have to be in a religious context, although if you're positive within certain religions that will help. But if we develop the better selves, what will happen is that we will see more detail in the world on the positive side. We will see how the positivity, the energy of life, for example, actually determines whether life exists at all. And at the same time, we look at the negative, we look at the self-harm, the destructiveness, and the complete holistic poverty of the humanoid collective as a result of routinely and persistently self-harming through evil and being motivated to do evil by higher beings. And that is certainly the case. Be aware of it. I'm not going to go into too much detail, that's a topic for another day. But the little shots shooting all the time, it's a bit like a game of tennis or like a round of archery. We aspire for high scores, for good serves, but if we don't get them all the time, we should just keep practicing, knowing that inevitably we're going to get better over time. And it is the same with being basically positive. I could say being good and virtuous, but that's too narrow a definition, gainers. We want to explore it from a little bit of a wider perspective, knowing that it's not just a sentiment, not just something nice to aspire to, so as to be nice people. It's far more substantial and important than that. It is about growing as people, as individuals, and preparing ourselves in this life for the next. Like seeds growing in the ground that can't flower until they've produced green leaves to get the energy and the experience of that life to create the flower to then reproduce themselves in future generations. So much of the wider reality, the quantum physics, because that's really where human science is at the moment, understanding just a little bit, it does get complicated, but just a little bit is enough to let us see how the illusions that we're surrounded with can be bypassed if we are open-minded, keep our ears open, keep our mouths shut, listen, look, and be a bit more positive. And it's going to be quite impressive for you if you follow this and you look back in a year's time. You'll start to see the positive effects in your life, as I do in mine, and in 5 years they're compounded, in 10 years they're even greater. And now and again you're going to pass some wise old bird, someone who's really lived their life in moderation without excess, and they've reached an old age, and they don't have much to say until you ask them, until you observe them, and then you'll see that the power of that positivity, of growing rather than shrinking into negativity. And we can't change the world, gainers, but we can change ourselves. And it's not a huge challenge, it's just a little daily challenge, little bits in increments, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, happening all the time, being always in our mind. That's what really works. I'm going to leave you with a lovely view now. I hope it inspires you. I hope it inspires you, gainers, to be positive and think positively.